Welcome.
To the joy of coding.
Hello, and welcome to episode 299 of The Joy of Coding. My name is Mike Conley. It's so good to see you. Episode 299. We made it. Woo! We're almost at 300. I guess we'll do the big celebration. Nice big round number next week, but 299. Not bad.
That's right.
How long have we been on this rock? 5 weeks? 2 days? Help me to recollect.
Pretty happy. So yeah, next week will be in episode 300. Let's start by talking about that. I'm gonna switch to my screen. I have a feeling my microphone's gonna cut out, so just give me a quick second while I sort that out. Just one moment. And we're back. Okay, so let's look at the agenda. Yes, today is August 31st, 2022, episode 299, and a reminder that no plan survives breakfast. I don't know what's going to happen today during the stream. I hope good things. I hope, we get some good work done. But, it might go sideways, builds might fail, things might fall apart, stream might fall over, my desk might suddenly collapse. We're just going to deal with it as it comes. That's the name of the game. So just bear with me as we work through it. But none of it's been sort of like pre-scripted or none of the patches have been pre-written. I'm going to be doing a code review. I haven't pre-done the review or anything. So you're catching me just doing my job as I normally do it, and warts and all. That's the first thing. The second thing, the agenda. The agenda that we're looking at is something that you have access to. If you're watching this on YouTube, check out the video description. If you're watching this on Airmozilla, check out the details section. If you're watching this on Diode.zone, check out the video description. And if you're watching this on Twitch, here comes the agenda into the Twitch chat. Ba-blam, there you go, episode 299. And as I update this, the agenda will update as well. There is an episode guide, and you should check it out. In fact, I believe there are some pull requests to the repository. We can actually start by reviewing those. Let's actually do that. Let's review some recent pull requests. Oh, that's about pull requests. Let's review some pull requests that just came in for some episodes, because the episode guide is completely viewer driven. It's there we go. You should, if the episode guide is something that you have interested in, and you very well might want to know about things that happened in previous episodes, or you might have your own notes or addenda or corrections or anything you might want to add that might give more utility to the episode. Maybe you want to just briefly, expand on something I talked about, or correct me or something. Send me a pull request to the repository. The episode guide is hosted on GitHub. If you're not sure what a pull request is or what a repository is, there's a guide here in the agenda that you can kind of follow along with, and it will kind of walk you through the whole process. But there are some pull requests in the repository to add some episodes. I've fallen a little bit behind. I thought we could add these in right now. I do this sometimes on the stream. Once again, Smurf D, being a hero, adding these episodes. I'm such a fan of Smurf D. I'm going to bring up Wacky Morning DJ again. Where's Wacky Morning DJ? I'm going to bring up Wacky Morning DJ here. That one's for you, Smurf D. Because the pull requests are from them, and we're going to take a look at episodes 295 and 296 first. So, for these episodes, what I like to do is just make sure that the dates are correct. So that was July 27th, episode 295. That's correct. The link here, these are all correct. I talked about something that came in on the feedback form about duping a bug. And I talked about the joy of profiling. I sort of solicited for more profiles to be submitted. I haven't been back into the office recently. I've been traveling a bit to see family, so I haven't been back to the office to do another episode of Joy of Profiling with Jeff and or Marcus. But hopefully we can do that soon. If you have a performance profile that you want to analyze, there will be a link that's in the episode guide for 295, and you can submit a profile. we can examine it. So I worked on an assertion failure issue. I ended up sorting this out, by the way. I don't know if I ever updated people on that, but for this one, it turned out the issue was related to Nika helped set me straight, where the private side of the promise, the holder, was discarded without ever resolving or rejecting the promise. So the thing that was holding onto the promise, if it ever got like reference count went to 0, it didn't know to resolve or reject the promise. And so I had to update the holder to do that. And you can see that patch here. This was for bug 1655509, and this helped resolve the crash. So in the destructor, we just say, okay, well, if I'm going away, if I'm holding a promise, reject that promise. And that's what we needed to do. Any other things to mention about this? Yeah, we talked about private browsing. I talked about Bergamo. That was very exciting. I talked about Thunderbird and how it's getting support for sync. That's great. This episode guide entry looks fantastic. Okay, the next one was August 3rd. And that was episode 296, of course. Great. I love it. We talked about private browsing and how it's still possible to open multiple windows at about private browsing even whenever you're in permanent private browsing mode. That's kind of related to the stuff we'll be looking at later today. I talked a little about ESMification. All this looks good. And I've been doing these episodes at home because I need to access my Windows 10 machine to do Windows task list changes. So that's why these last few streams have been from home. So this whole thing looks fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and approve and merge this pull request in and say thank you. Always thank your contributor. Next up, we've got episodes 297, 298. Let's just get through this. August 17th, 297. Yes. Yes. I talked about Mozilla Connect. That's how, if you want to like contribute ideas or give feedback on various things in various Mozilla projects, including Firefox, for desktop, for Android, for iOS, Thunderbird, like all sorts of things. The way to do it is through Mozilla Connect. That's how you should do it, as opposed to like going into Bugzilla and like doing a big old rant. So go to Mozilla Connect. And then I talked a little bit about the Windows task tray and coalescing and stuff. Let's see. We started to make our way through the jump list manager code. We got partially through it, just like we started to dip our toes into it. That all looks good. And then last week's episode was August 24th, episode 298. That looks good. We did a code review. More, and then we kept going into this Windows jump list stuff. We put more stuff off of the main thread. We also got to use the maybe construct, where instead of passing null pointer around to indicate that we don't need to do anything, you can pass a maybe, which either resolves to something or nothing, and that's a nice way of not accidentally dereferencing a null pointer. So there you go. That was nice. This all looks fantastic. Let's merge this in. Thank you so much, SmurfD, once again. Thank you. I'm going to put multiple U's there. Outstanding. SmurfD, completely irreplaceable, the best. Let's now proceed. What are we doing today? It's August 31st. Well, like I mentioned, next week is episode 300, and I wanted to talk a little bit about what I had planned. Pizza. Maybe I'll have a slice of pizza. That's a good question. I just noticed the word pizza time show up from Shulk in the chat. I'm not sure if that's one of those like Twitch meme things. I can't actually see if it's a graphic. I can't see it. I just see the word pizza time. I am very excited about pizza in general. So yes, pizza time. Maybe I'll have a slice of pizza next week for episode 300. But what I was thinking of doing next week, this was suggested either in chat or via the forum. I can't remember which, but I thought it was an interesting idea. Is I might try to contribute a fix to Thunderbird next week. It's a pizza with a pineapple graphic. To each their own. I'm not a huge fan of pineapple on pizza. I love pizza. I like creative pizza. I tried pineapple on pizza. I can't get over the sweetness on the savory with the cheese. I can't seem to do it. I've given it an honest shake. I enjoy pineapple. I enjoy pizza, but together in the same bite, I can't get through it. But yes, next week I was thinking we might contribute a fix to Thunderbird. So I'm going to go find a good first bug, or just like a good medium bug, just something like I'm familiar with Gecko, and I'm familiar with how Firefox works. It's been a long time since I've touched the Thunderbird code base. Like, just to give people some context here, I started as a contractor. My very first paid professional gig outside of like summer intern work, my first paid job outside of school was as a contractor working on Thunderbird for a spin-off of Mozilla called Mozilla Messaging. I don't think spin-off is the correct term. I think it's subsidiary. Mozilla Messaging no longer exists. It got sort of reabsorbed into Mozilla Corporation. But now there's basically another, I guess you could call it a subsidiary, another like company that takes care of Thunderbird. They're called like MZLA Technologies. I think that's what they're called, MZLA Technologies. I think that's the technical term, MZLA Technologies. Yeah, and that's a subsidiary not of Mozilla Corporation, but a subsidiary of the foundation. I believe that's how that works. Now, so we're like siblings. MZLA is a sibling of the Mozilla Corporation. But, ultimately the code's in the same place. It's hosted at hg.mozilla.org. I haven't looked at it in a while. I'm eager to see what it looks like. There's been a lot of really great changes that I've heard about. It's been a while since I've booted up Thunderbird, because I normally use it on a different machine that I haven't used in a long time. But I'd like to check it out and see what's been going on. I've heard great things about the address book recently. Like, I think it supports CardDAV now, which was something I always wanted to do, but I never found the time to do it. So and they got the address book off of Mork, I think. So the Mork database was this like very, it was very Gecko. It was like very old school from the Netscape days. They had this like in-memory key value store effectively called Mork. It was really bizarre. And the address book used to be powered by Mork, and I think they figured out how to do the transition off of Mork to SQLite, and I believe that's how the Thunderbird address book works now, as an SQLite database. And I'm very curious to see how that works. Maybe we can patch some address book bugs, because I have some of the first things I worked on for Thunderbird was for the address book, so I have a close affinity. Akra says that Thunderbird has a UI bug on Windows 7, and it might be easy to fix. The bar on the left side overlaps the file menu when it's not hidden. Yeah, we could take a look at that. I haven't selected which Thunderbird bug to look at. If you've got an idea of which bug we could look at, send it on the Rate This Episode forum so I can put it in the queue and we can take a look at it. Now, if it turns out that this doesn't work out, I want to have a backup plan in case, for some reason I can't get Thunderbird to build, or like we just, we can't make any forward progress on it. So if you've heard me, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before, I'm a big fan of point-and-click adventure games from the 90s, like Monkey Island, The Dig, like the LucasArts point-and-click adventure games, Sam & Max, Day of the Tentacle, Maniac Mansion. And then a similar fan of like the Sierra games like King's Quest, Space Quest series. I enjoy these sorts of games, and one of the creators of Monkey Island, his name is Ron Gilbert. They a few months ago and revealed that they were working on a brand new Monkey Island game called Return to Monkey Island, and I'm very excited for that. That game is actually shipped. This isn't a sponsored advertisement or anything. Like, I'm not getting paid. If Ron Gilbert was somehow watching or heard that I was sort of talking about Return to Monkey Island, I'd fan out. I'd be very excited, because point and click adventure games are kind of why I got into computing, because I was very interested in them. I wanted to know how they worked. I loved them as a kid, and that's why some of the first games I tried to make in QBasic were like trying to be point and click adventure games. Anyways, long story short, there's an upcoming Monkey Island game called Return to Monkey Island. I'm excited to play it. It's coming out in September. And I thought we might, as a fun thing to do, we could look at ScumVM's source code. So ScumVM, if you're not familiar with it, is a software it's a program that knows how to reinterpret old games from that era, from like the 90s, and more modern games actually. Like it's basically a bunch of engine reimplementations, because games like Monkey Island 1 and Monkey Island 2 and Space Quest and all of these sorts of games, the way they were designed was there was an engine that interpreted a bunch of asset files and scripts, and like those engines were designed for older machines. Like they were designed in the DOS era, or they were designed in the very early Windows era, maybe, if you're lucky. And so, unsurprisingly, we have a harder time running those things. I mean, yeah, you can boot up DOSBox, but it's not great. It's not a great experience. And ScumVM is basically a like white room re-implementation of a bunch of these game engines so that they can reinterpret those scripts and assets, and then you can play the game on modern hardware. And ScumVM is incredibly portable in that you can play these games on like a PlayStation, a hacked PlayStation, or like your iPhone, or your desktop, your new desktop, your old desktop. Like it's crazy what the sorts of platforms ScumVM runs on. I thought we might take a look at the part of it that interprets Monkey Island, which is the Scum engine part of the ScumVM program, because it's open source, which is really cool if you want to know how like these sorts of what the engines look like. I thought that would be neat to look at as well. So if this doesn't pan out, we might try that. I haven't really poked at the Scum engine before, and I'd be curious to know how it works. Danny Colin suggests that I ask in mail dev for a good first bug to work on. Oh, that brings back memories. That's probably how I started my job. Could even span this into a few Joy of Coding episodes. Yeah, could. Yeah. Well, we'll see. If I get stuck on something really particularly interesting and thorny, we could spread it out over a couple. Okay, so that's what's going on next week. Stay tuned for that. Episode 300. It's going to be grand. Maybe I'll wear a fun hat. I want to point out as well that I will be traveling on September 19th and 26th, and I will not be able to stream, so there will be no episodes towards the end of September. With all the preamble, like we're 20 minutes in, I haven't actually looked at any code or written any code, so let's start by just jumping in. I want to review a patch, and partially this is because I recently pulled and rebased, so I don't, on my Windows machine, I don't know if my build's done yet. Let's see how it's going. Still going. Like 38 minutes in, still building the JavaScript engine. So let's hope by the time that I'm done this code review, the build will be done. Okay, so the patch I want to review is something related to Session Store. So full disclosure, I have looked at this briefly. I looked at it yesterday. I had a free moment, but yesterday is also like, Tuesdays are my days where I have a lot of meetings, and I've got like half an hour in between meetings, and so it's not a lot of time to do any like writing of patches or even reviewing of patches. But in that time, I took an opportunity to kind of like familiarize myself with what this patch is trying to do. So just to be clear, I'm not coming at this with like zero knowledge. I'm coming at this with a little bit of information. But let's start from scratch, actually. Let's talk a little bit about what this is doing. So this patch landed in my queue, or at least it was raised to me as something I should take a look at, because one of the other reviewers, I think, has too much on their plate. They don't have time to look at this. They asked me to take a look at it. And so this is the commit message is for restoring pin tabs when windows are closed, and it's for bug 1717867. So let's start by taking a look at the bug. What is this about? So a year ago, a user named Joe Vance reported this bug. They were new to Bugzilla and said, hey, here's some steps to reproduce this weird bug in Firefox 89 on Windows. So open a regular window, now pin a tab, now open a second window, and now pin a tab, close the window with the pinned tab. So you had two windows. In fact, why don't we go through these steps? Let's, oh yeah, this happened recently. I have to remove these files. Let's do a quick artifact build and run through these steps so we can see what's being talked about here. But basically, if you have two windows and one with a pin tab, and that's the first window, and then the second one doesn't have a pin tab, and then you close that first, you close that first window, and then you close the second window. Oh, I see. So there's actually 3 windows. You start with a window, and then you open a new window, pin a tab, open another window, it doesn't have a pin tab. You close the first window that's with the pin tab, and then you close the window without the pin tab, and then you open a new regular window. Then the new window opens without any pin tabs or with tabs restored from the second window in the reproduction steps if the restore option is selected. They expect that a new window should open with pin tabs and with restored tabs from the second window in repro steps if restore option is selected. If restore option. Would it be possible to have pin tabs be stored as a global setting so that when any new window is open, any pin tabs from the global settings that are not already open in an existing window are restored as pin tabs in the new window? So for example, if I have 2 windows open, 1 and 2, and in 1 I have tabs A and B pinned, and in 2 I have tab C pinned, if I close 2 and then open a new window, I'd expect to see tab C pinned in the new window. And if I close both 1 and 2 and open a new window, I'd expect to see tabs A, B, and C pinned in the new window. Interesting. So this was a request from 1 year ago. I think we might. I'm actually pretty sure we just throw out. Oh, October 9th. Oh, Crushed Optimist, you are absolutely right. I had the days wrong. This should be whatever the Wednesdays are at the end. Let me pull up a calendar. Hang on. I'm just going to take a quick second here to fix this entry here. What was the Wednesdays? It was the Wednesday, the 21st, the 14th, and the 21st. No, it's the 21st and the 28th. That's what it should be. 21st and the 28th. That's when I'm traveling. 21st or 28th. Thank you very much, Crushed Optimist. Glad to have you out there paying attention to the calendar. Okay, so have we got our build? Still getting some artifacts, but here we go. Let's look at this conversation. So a year ago, Peter M. From Softvision said, the restore previous session restores the pinned normal tabs from the window that was last closed. I'm going to set a component in order to get a second opinion from the development team. Then someone named BJ Herbison writes, pin tabs are restored on every window open when you exit Firefox. If you close windows one at a time, you lose pin tabs except from the last window. However, if you quit, pin tabs are preserved in all windows. Training yourself to exit with quit will solve one of the paths that lead to this issue. I believe an improvement for Firefox would be a prompt when closing a window with pin tabs that isn't the only window open. The user has requested that state be preserved. Give them a chance to stop before removing that preserved state. So that's one way of doing it, is by warning the user. Although I have to say that, this is adding this sort of annoyance, like a burnt, like, hey, that thing you want to do, are you sure you want to do it? We try to avoid that when possible. And instead make it easy for a user to undo an action that they realize that they didn't want to do, rather than just like warning a user and making sure that they can confirm. Like that's kind of like the solution of last resort. That's one thing I've learned from sort of UI design, as opposed to just like every time a user is trying to do something, we just like throw warnings in their face. We make it easy to sort of like go back. Like if you realize, oh, I didn't mean to close that, we try and make it easy to restore. I think what, so like that, it sounds like what is being, so this patch just got created, and it sounds like the author has made it so that when you open a new window on Firefox restart, restore windows closed before quit and with pinned tabs. Which is interesting because BJ Herbson says pin tabs are restored on every window open. So I'm curious to know what this is actually fixing. Let's take a quick peek at some of these scenarios. So I've got a profile here, temp profile. We're going to launch it. Now this user was on Windows. which means that they don't have the situation where they can like close all of the windows and keep the program running. So unlike Mac OS, which I'm on. So I'm going to follow the exact same steps by opening a new window. And now we are going to pin a tab. So let's see. I'm going to pin mozilla.org. Let's pin this tab. And now open a second regular window, any method. So no pin tab there. And close the window with the pinned tab. Okay, there it goes. Now close the window without the pin tab. Okay, there it goes. And then open a new regular window. Okay. And they expected that the window should open with pinned tabs. Okay. Now what happens if I like restore a closed window? Like I can restore this one. I can restore this one. That one also doesn't have a pin. And then this one. And then this one does have the pinned tab. If the restore option is selected. So I'm not entirely certain we'd want to actually do this. Like, if a user closes something with a pinned tab, closes a window, because here's I'm gonna sort of talk about the worst case scenario for a second here. Let's suppose that, yeah, this bug does need UX work. Like I'm not. I don't know if this is the right solution, the one that's being expected here by this reporter. Like, this is one idea to solve their particular issue. But here's the worst case scenario. One thing to keep in mind is that pinned tabs are loaded eagerly when the window opens. And that's because users expect them to be able to be updated in the background. Like you're supposed to like put your calendar or your email in there, and whenever like it's a long-lived thing such that whenever an update occurs, it's like, you know, it lights up or something. We used to call them app tabs. It's for, yeah, pin an app in your browser. And so we restore them eagerly by default. And if you closed a window with pinned apps and you definitely didn't want to revisit or make requests to that site again, it is kind of unintuitive that by opening a new window, suddenly we're gonna eagerly make requests again for those sites that were originally pinned. We're gonna go get them, they're gonna be pinned in the corner, and we also went and requested those pages. Akris says, I also lost pin tabs a few times due to opening a second window and closing the windows in the wrong order. And Danny says, no, since you don't know if the user closing windows one after the other wants to keep all those sessions or only the last window session. Exactly. We don't exactly know what the user wants here. Like, this is what this user wants. This is what they expect, but I don't know if this matches like general user expectations. So already I'm a bit wary of where this patch is leading to, because someone has gone to the effort of writing a patch and they've put, you know, time and effort into this. And I hope whatever they're proposing is something we'd be willing to accept, because the worst case is that like we don't actually want to do this and then the work is wasted. Okay, so let's take a look at what this patch does. One thing I remember reading yesterday is that they went through the work of adding tests and special kinds of tests. Normally, when you see me writing tests for the browser, you probably see me writing what are called Moki-test browser tests. Those are tests that start with like browser underscore, and they run in the context of the browser, like an instance of the browser in the parent process. They allow us to like open tabs, close tabs, press buttons, click things, open panels, that sort of thing. The problem with that kind of test is that it doesn't really allow you to properly test the whole life cycle, including shutdown and startup, because the test runs within the context of the browser process. And so if like you have the harness shut down the browser, you lose all the testing state. And so a new kind of test mechanism was used for Session Store called I think Firefox UI tests is what we call these. And they use the same automation stuff that our DevTools uses under the hood, the Marionette framework, to instrument the browser. And the tests are written in Python. And so what you do is you send commands from this Python script, and it like goes over the Marionette framework, and it runs stuff on the browser side. But it allows you to like shut down the browser and restart it, and all of the execution scope of the test, like it's all happening within Python, which continues to live even whenever the browser shuts down, which is cool. So one thing I'd be interested in doing is I'm going to start with looking at this test to see what their test does, because that's usually a good hint on what it is that they're trying to do. Because I'm still not sure what this patch is trying to do. So looking at the test is often a good hint. Danny Colin writes, a few ideas. We could reopen all windows if they have been closed quickly one after the other, let's say less than 15 seconds apart. Another solution could be to move pinned tabs to the last active window. Yeah, you could like transfer them all, any pinned tabs. Yes. It's a question of user intent. What did the user mean when they closed a window with those pinned tabs? Did they mean to say, hey, I want all of the contents of this window to go away, including the pinned tabs? Or do we assume that it was a mistake and that they didn't want them to go away? I mean, this is exactly the sort of thing that I think you're right, we need UX help with. Like, I don't actually know what the right call is here. But that's it. Our job right now is to just look at this patch, see what it's offering. Oculus doesn't want them to go away. So that's one opinion. Tell me what you think. Drop it in the chat. Tell me what you think. But like, this is the sort of the challenge, the interesting challenge of writing software for hundreds of millions of people is, what is it that is most intuitive? What's the most obvious thing to do to satisfy the greatest number of users? What is the most intuitive thing to do so that, you know, the number of people who are upset with the behavior is minimized? How's that? Just add a big list of checkbox preferences and settings. Oh, good. Yeah, that's /S. Smurfd says he expects them to go away. Of course. See, we don't even, within this small community that is watching this stream, we do not have alignment. Okay, what does this test do? Well, the first thing it does is it defines a test window with some test tabs, and I think it like names them. I don't know what inline is. What is inline? I don't know what inline is. It's a thing that you import from, Session Store test case. That's this thing. What the heck is inline? It's like some kind of utility. What is inline? Oh, I see. This is what we're putting inside of a document. I see. So instead of loading a specific document, we're basically saying, hey, drop this into a data URL. Okay, so open a page at this data URL, 1.1 pinned, open another one, and this second argument for test tab, what is that? I presume that means pinned. Let's find out. Wow, is this how Python works now? I didn't realize you could do this. I guess this is Python 3. TIL, but you can say how a class, like the default properties, I guess. And pinned is, what's the constructor? Is this like a way of defining the constructor? A data class. Sorry, I have to brush up on data classes. Class decorator use methods to describe. Let's test this. let's open up a Python interpreter. Let's say data class C. Doesn't know what a data class is. How do you get that? You have to import it from something? Ah, I see. Built in. Whoop. From data classes, import data class. And now let's do our thing here. Okay, liked it. Now if I say like C and I pass it a string as the first argument, what does it think? Missing a positional argument. It's missing. So somehow I think it coerced our string into an integer, and it's missing these other two arguments. That's interesting. So like test. So let's say like x equals test. What's x.x? So even though we said we expected an integer, it's like, okay, here, we'll overwrite it with a string. That sounds safe. Okay, great. And then presumably like it has no idea what that is. And then if I do y equals c, 1, hello, was it typing any? Maybe there's ways of doing like type checking. That's why typing any. I wonder if this like allows you to specify an actual type. Like maybe Python's starting to get into the type checking world. Yeah. Okay. I don't want to go too deep into like relearning Python, but basically what we've learned is that this is a constructor. This defines a constructor, and the order is URL, whether or not it's pinned, and that defaults to false, and then some kind of handle, and it looks like it has a default value kind of laid out here. Okay, that's fine. And in fact, I'm not expecting to, like, someone else, Wimbu, who is much more familiar. I think he wrote the Firefox UI framework, is the one who knows this stuff and reviewed the Python code. So I don't have to really be super familiar with the actual implementation of the test. What I'm interested in is, what is the test doing? Chris is like, if I wanted them to go, I unpin them. So yeah, the duking it out. Just add a big list of checkbox preferences. I expect them to go away if I close the window, and you can give types. Yeah, you can give types in Python. Very interesting. So Python trying to get back into typing. Interesting. So anyways, we have a window here. 2 pins, 1 unpinned. Then another window, and that's got 1 pinned and 2 unpinned tabs. Then a third window, all unpinned tabs, and then a private browsing window with 2 pinned tabs and 1 unpinned tab. And then, so these are like definitions of windows, but they're not actually open yet. The first thing we do is we open the first window and the private window. And I think this is the part where we wait for the windows to be set up and get going. And then we get access to the window handle. Presumably, first window and private window had their handles written to via wait for windows. I presume that that's how that works. Nope. But how about open windows? Oh yeah, that's probably going to do it. Win equals open window, then open tabs. Like, you pass this definition. Well, I actually don't know. Do we need the handle? It looks like the handle is not being written, but maybe we don't actually need it. Yeah. Okay, so anyways, we open a first window and a private window. I don't want to get bogged down in the details of how this thing's implemented. That's too distracting. Just want to know what it's doing. We wait for our windows to be open. We switch to the second window. So we bring it to the foreground. We open these... we open some tabs. The window... So presumably when we opened the window, we didn't actually open the tabs in them. Okay, so we open those tabs in them. And then we switch to the first window again. So this is our most recent window. So now what we have open is first window, private window, and second window in that order. Personally, I probably would have put them in the order that they're being opened in. But okay. Then we switch to the first window. And then we close the window. Presumably, close Chrome window is going to close the foreground window. Okay, so we close the first window, and the second window technically should already be switched to. I mean, if that was the next window after the one, so we I don't know, see why we need to switch to it, but okay, we switch to it. The first window should be closed. Okay, so we expect that the first window has gone away from the set. Okay. And then we open a third window. So let's review. We opened up a first window, then a second window. No, sorry, a first window, a private window, then a second window. Then we close the first window. We have the second window in the foreground. We open up a third window. We bring that window to the foreground. We open the tabs in it. And then we switch to the second window and we close it. So now we've closed two windows. The first window had 2 pins. The second one had 1. We've closed 2 windows. And then we switch to the third window and we quit the browser. So this is the thing that Moki-Test browser can't do. And then we restart the browser. That's what start session is. And then we expect, so it looks like we change our definition here of tabs by culling the unpinned tab and culling the, wait, hold on a second. So we shut down the browser. We've got this non-private browsing window open. We expect this one to go away. Fine. Yeah, definitely shouldn't be restored. We shouldn't be persisting it. Makes sense. We quit. We start. We expect the first and the second window to be back. That doesn't sound right to me. That doesn't sound right. Sorry, no, it wasn't frozen. That's just me thinking. That was me just thinking. Sorry. All right, let's apply this patch and see if we can reproduce what's being described in this test. So let's quit out of our Python interpreter. Wait, I think I actually have, yeah, here we've got this. Let's quit. We're going to pull down this patch. Ocris expects 1 window, all pinned tabs that were ever closed ever throughout the lifetime of browsing existence. I think that's one of the problems, Ocris, is then how do you get rid of pinned tabs? I guess you have to unpin them. You have to actively unpin them. You're just going to be accumulating more and more pins until eventually you're like, okay, it's time to start unpinning some tabs. All right, let's build this. We might actually run this test too. It's been a while since I've run a Firefox UI test, but let's see this in action, see what it looks like. Yes, unpin them and get rid of them, says Okris. So it's almost like, it sounds like Okris really wants like the safety of pinning. Pinning as the sort of thing of like, stay put, don't move. I don't want you to go anywhere. And like pinning is like almost like you are unable to close a pinned tab. It is not possible until you unpin it. That's what it sounds like. Unknown test. What if I just say the name of the test? It's also possible that I have to grep Firefox UI functional. Yeah, okay. Run the functional test suite. I think that's this. What does this do? Run the test suite. Can I run an individual test? Tests to run. One or more paths. Okay. So let's try that. Starting fix. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Okay, so the test passed. So let's now try and recreate this ourselves. I'm curious to know when the like restore session automatically thing, win, register, start, private startup page. I think that might be the thing that's important, is that startup page is like how you configure, you configure to make sure that we restore okay. Yeah, we want to set this to be the same thing. So let's start by going to about config, setting this startup page. What? Browser. What's it called? Browser startup.page. Browser.startup.page. We're going to set that. It's already one. That's good. So like we are configured to restore by default. Oh, no, we're not. What is this? Startup pref value, startup pref, restore session. What is startup pref restore session? 3, and yet it's setting it as 1 by default. What is the... Do we ever set startup page as 1? Does this ever base? I am very confused. Part of me worries that this thing has changed things such that we automatically restore the session now. Because if base session, startup page is 1, if this is what we're actually set at, somehow we are bringing these windows back after we restart the browser. Let's find out. Let us find out. So, we'll start by going to some page. Let's go to mozilla.org. And then mikeconley.ca, and then cbc.ca. And now let's pin these 2 tabs. Okay. And now we're going to open a private browsing window. And we're going to open up some pin at like, I don't know, getpocket.com. And we'll pin that. And is Getpocket a real page? Yes, it is. Just taking its sweet time. And then we'll pin another one at, I don't know, google.com. And open up another one at, I don't know, microsoft.com. Here we go. So we've got our two windows. And then we're going to open up another window. Switch to the window, the second window. No, wait, hold on a second. We're going to open up a window. And we're going to open up one pin. So the pin will be, sure, YouTube. And then the other page will be Reddit. Fine. That's the second window. And then we're going to, so we've got those three windows. Then we're going to switch to the first window, which was this one. Whoops, I didn't mean to go anywhere. Hold on. Switch to the first window. We're going to close this window. Okay. And then we're going to switch to the second window. That was this one. And then we're going to open up a third window. And the third window has no pinned pages. So let's open up some of these pocket stories. Sure. And then we're going to switch to the second window. We're going to close it, I think. And then we're going to switch to the third window. And then we're going to quit the browser. Okay, so we're quitting the browser now. And then we say yes. Now we're going to restart the browser. Interestingly, that did not bring back the last session. I wonder if start session actually does the work. Start session, Marionette start session. What does Marionette start session do? Oh, documentation. Amazing. Start session. Well, how about if I just say restore previous session? It brings me back this one window. That's what I expected. I can bring back this window. And it's got my two tabs and CBC, and then these two are, yeah, okay. Now, what was going on here? Like, why did it suddenly get these things in the test? In-app, quit in-app, wait for Windows. It's not like, this is not configured in a weird way, as far as I can tell. Base window, base session store test. Start a page, no auto updates, win, register, restart, false. And then session store test case. Auto updates, true, win, register, restart, false. What? And then it opens the test windows. Oh. So it opens some test windows, I think. Is that true? think that's true. Plus, this inherits from base anyways. What was happening here? Base session store test case. Who's using session store test case? I've changed session to make more of diverse tests, like for the patch that involved pin tabs. Divide session into 2 classes in order to make a test which create their own windows and don't want them. Okay, all right. So there's just some re-architecture. I do not understand how this results in these 2 windows opening again. Am I too... I see something in the text in the chat that says 2020 speak up. Am I too quiet? Hey gang, am I too quiet? Is that what's going on? Is that what that means, Christianer? Let me know. All right, let's actually look and see what the patch does. So this is the routine that runs whenever we want to flush the current state across all windows to disk. And so what we do is we do not, if we've got permanent private browsing, we just don't do anything. We go and get the current state for each window. Then we filter out any private windows and tabs. And then we want to restore windows with pinned tabs? That doesn't seem right. Like at this point, we actually don't want to restore anything. We might want to persist windows. Maybe that's what they mean. They want to persist windows. So what they do is they call into this function called restore pinned windows, which I would rename if we're going to do this, because that's not actually what this function does. This is for persisting state, like serializing the Windows state. So what does it do? Restore closed windows with pinned tabs. When the browser state for which we restore windows with pinned tabs. So yeah, like this is serializing this stuff by pinned tabs should be restored. If there are any remaining tabs, they should be added back to closed windows. We'll cheat a little bit and reuse prep data for deferred restore, even though it wasn't exactly built for this. What? Into closed windows. I don't even know what this does. I might not be the right reviewer here. What is this? Take a state as provided, startup view, split it into 2 parts. The first part will be the state that should still be restored at startup. The second part is a state that should be saved for later. Default state will be comprised of windows with only pinned tabs. Default state will be restored at startup. State will be passed into the last session. Only kept in case the user explicitly wants to restore the previous session. I see. That's how we split out the pins. The pins. And it's pulling out pinned windows. Default state. I mean, it's more than just a window. I wouldn't even call it that as well. Like, this is what we get out of prep data for deferred restore aren't individual windows. They are, this is the default state and this is the state. What they're saying is state closed windows. Oh, geez. And then, so they're doing this on persisting. They decide to write to closed windows by saying, let's get our current closed windows, which we were already persisting this, but let's reprocess them by pulling out ones that have pins and put that into closed windows. And then everything else, putting everything without pins, put that into closed windows. Anything that does have pins that were closed, put that into the actual window list to be restored next time. Okay, this is the Ocris model. This is what Ocris wants, I think. Although restore penthouse, the tabs have been explicitly closed. Maybe don't restore tabs. This looks strange too. Look how we're looping over some windows by index. Oh, I see. We actually don't increment here. We're expecting this to... Okay. That is less strange than I thought. Resize closed windows to the value of the pref. Right. We have a pref that controls how many windows we will remember. I think by default it's like 3. And you can increase that preference, I think, if you want. And cap closed windows. What is this called? Man, are we even going to get to this jump list stuff? I did not expect... I did not expect this review to take this long. Decide whether or not a closed window should be put into the closed windows object. It looks like this is going to do the work of like truncating or like slicing off the front of the list if we've exceeded some kind of maximum. So if we're less than the max, forget it, we're done. Otherwise, we're going to figure out where we want to splice to. Max windows undo. That's presumably the preference value. Yeah, that's a numerical value for how many windows we're going to undo, and I believe that defaults to 3. Yeah. So we get this number, and then this contributor is like, okay, well, we're going to keep track of the index of the first normal window. I don't know what a normal window is, but okay. And if we're not on Mac OS, let's then search through the closed windows for the first window that is not a pop-up. If that first window exists at some point after it's greater than the number of windows that we need. It's greater than the max number of windows. Then we're going to splice to there plus 1. So we're moving this like splicing index, this cursor. We're searching for the right place. And we start by trying to, what do we used to do? We'd find the first window that's not a pop-up. And then we say, okay, well, if that splice in that cursor is less, we make sure we haven't somehow gone off the edge of our array. And then we splice to it. So we'll cut that off. Oh, once the index is greater or equal to the maximum, I see. That's gonna cut off the amount so that the resulting array has fewer, has like at maximum this amount. Okay, I understand. So we go through, oh geez, now we're gonna iterate backwards through this array. We check to see if, oh, this freaks me out. We're iterating an array and then we splice that array while we're iterating it. That freaks me out. it's always weird to manipulate a collection while you're iterating that collection, like adding and removing items. That's a very easy way to introduce strange logic errors where, you know, you accidentally remove a thing and then in the next tick of the loop you're off the edge of your array and you explode or something. I mean, one way of working around that is by going backwards through the list, because then when you remove something, you don't run the risk of going off the edge because you've changed the length, because you're still from where you are, the index has not changed. So okay, I see. We're gonna check to see whether or not the closed window has any pinned tabs. I don't know what underscore maybe is. What the heck is that? Underscore maybe. What? That looks suspect. Return not maybe. What is maybe? Did we add maybe? What is maybe and where does it come from? So something, and then we check to see whether or not it has any tabs that are pinned. And if so, we return true, otherwise return false. So going back down here, we're looping through backwards. We see if there are any, if the closed window has no pinned tabs, then we'll splice it. So this means that we'll never throw away. We will not abide by the maximum windows if all of the windows have pinned tabs. Interestingly, this means that if all windows have pinned tabs, then upon closing them, we won't remove any from the closed windows list, and we'll smash right through our limit. Effectively, this makes to be explicit, this change makes windows with pinned tabs exempt from the max Windows undo limit. And now what happens if we've got a mixture? If we work our way backwards until the thing we're trying to splice to remind me, what does splice do again? Like if I've got an array in JavaScript, let a equals 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, and I say a dot splice, and I say 2 and then a dot length, what's it going to return? So it cut off the first two items, and it cut off the first two items and returned them. And then when you call, like, it actually returned what it cut off, and then it modified the array to keep the things that we cut. So presumably, if we'd said a dot splice like 6 or 5, like we'd keep the first 5. Okay. And then what this does is we're working our way backwards through this list. We're going to remove one. We're going to work our way backwards. We're removing. I see. Yeah, we're cutting off the end one at a time. Rather than doing it as a big chunk, we're going to cut them off one at a time. And we'll either be less than our limit or we won't. But I think that works, actually, working backwards and doing this. And then if we've kept a window, we could remove one more if there was a normal window after. If we're splicing, splice 2 is greater than the first normal window index plus 1. We could remove one more if there's a normal window after. This is really, I don't know why I'm having a hard time reasoning about this. This is not clear, this stuff. No, this is not a knock against the author. I mean, this is already kind of unclear what's going on here. I mean, I want to thank the patch author here for doing this stuff, but it's like, oh man, what is happening? Okay. But ultimately, that's what they were doing, is they're making it so that the last session always has. Okay, let's see if we can see this behavior in action now. So see, I just started up and it brought back these two windows. Now I'm going to close this window and I'm going to restart the browser. Didn't bring the other one back. Let's say. Windows into Windows. Save state. Do I have to like wait a second? Okay, restart. Oh, I think we just hit some kind of like infinite loop. Lazy Session Store. Restore pinned windows is not a function. That's a problem. Did I not build correctly? Restore pinned windows is a function. Is not a function. On line 265 of Session Saver. Like, keep only worth saving tabs is like a sibling. Did I fail to build or something? Okay, let's. This is smelling all kinds of bizarre. Okay. Now if I say Session Store, keep only worth saving tabs. How about restore pinned windows? Yeah, that is a function. It exists. Ooh, I got myself a tea. Is it a tea? It's a coffee delivery. Ladies and gentlemen, we got ourselves a coffee delivery. Thank you very much for the coffee delivery.
Hi-oh!
Oh, yeah.
Very good. Very good. Okay, let's restore this window. Now I'm going to close this window. Wait for 5 seconds. Now restart the session. Okay, and that worked. And it brought back this window with just the one pin. So even if I have like let's go to Facebook here, pin, and I'm gonna open up another window here, and I'm gonna go to like hotels.com, sponsored link. I'm gonna pin this. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna close this, I'm gonna close this, I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna wait 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, restart. Yeah, it brought some of them back. Brought hotels.com. Oh, it brought all of them back. Yeah, it brought all of them back. Ooh, okay, so the end result here. So it seems like is that windows with pinned tabs. I mean, it's exactly what it says on the tin. On Firefox Restart, restore Windows closed before quit with pinned tabs. So this does exactly what the patch says in the commit message, in that it causes Firefox, upon session restoration, to restore all closed windows that had pinned tabs. Even if all windows with that had pinned tabs from that session, even if those windows had been explicitly closed by the user. There's a real UX benefit, I think. Well, I think we need some product management guidance or UX guidance on what we actually want to do here. It seems like some of our users expect pinned tabs to never be able to be lost, whereas there are others that expect a closed window, that a window that was explicitly closed to stay closed unless the user asks for the closed window to be reopened. How about if you don't have a pinned tab in the last opened window? Good question. Let's do this again. So we've got all these tabs here. I'm gonna open up another window, and I'm gonna say just go to this article, and I'm gonna wait 2, 3, 4, 5, restart. Oh, that was reader mode. I did not mean to enter reader mode. I want to restart the browser. Am I hitting the wrong keys? I think I'm hitting the wrong keys. Here, file, restart. Yeah, should have been Shift Command R or Control. Oh, I didn't close any windows. That's what I needed to do. Sorry, I need to close these windows. What just happened made a lot of sense, actually. We restored all of these windows because they were all open at the time of restarting. What I want to do now is close these windows. So I'm going to close this one, closing this one, closing this one, closing this one. That was the last one. Wait a couple seconds for session to be saved. Restart. Okay, so it's just the pinned ones. Just the ones with pins. I don't think I want to thank the author for putting this together. Clearly this was a lot of work to sort through our session store code but I cannot approve. Approve this patch until I have a clear sense of whether or not we actually want to make this the default behavior for our users. So I'm going to need info, a product manager in the bug to get us started on that conversation. So I'm going to say, I'm going to resign as reviewer for now. And request information from Roman. He's one of our product managers. Hey, Roman. Hey, Artistard. I could use some product manager feedback here. What we've got is there's a patch in this bug that changes that I was asked to review that changes how session restoration works. Specifically, it makes it so that even that all windows that had contained one or more pinned tabs will be restored, but just their pins upon a session restoration, even if those windows had been explicitly closed. Let me give an example. A user opens, a user has Firefox open. They open a new window and pin some tabs. Open a new window X and pin some tabs. A user opens a second new window and pins some tabs. The user closes window Y. The user closes window X. The user shuts down the browser. Oh, okay, hang on. Let's actually make sure that these steps are what's going to happen. So let's start from scratch. Close. Unpin. No. Let's go home. Okay. User is Firefox open. They open a new window. Pin a tab. Open another window. Pin a tab. Close this window. Close this window. Close the browser. Start the browser. See, I wasn't even configured to restore. I was not configured to restore my last session. Okay. User shuts down the browser. The user starts their browser. All windows that contained pinned tabs are then restored. But just their pins. This effectively means that windows that are closed by the user will always return. Windows with pinned tabs that are closed by the user will always return on the next startup. They cannot be gotten rid of unless the user unpins those tabs. I I'm really not certain that's the expected behavior here. I suspect not, but I wanted you to have a chance to weigh in. Also, is there an alternative way? Is there perhaps an alternative way to make it easier to keep, to not accidentally lose pinned tabs? Perhaps we could make them exempt from the capacity limit 3 currently that we put on the recently closed Windows list, so that they're always restorable. Although that list might get quite long. Alternatively, we could increase, just generally increase the capacity limit from 3 to something larger. From what I can tell, that limit doesn't have any technical basis. It was just a number selected out of thin air. All right. So there you go. Resigned. that was the that was it. And we didn't get to our jump list stuff. We're already at the end of the episode, but our build's done, so that's good. And it's still built. Like I rebased the patches, so it's still built, which is good. One thing you might, I'm actually curious to see something. Let's open up this build. And I open up a new private window. Yeah, one thing I noticed that they've made it so that it says the words private browsing in the window now, which is interesting. It's like it makes it a lot clearer, I think, for people that like, okay, this is a private browsing window. And it's like kind of got this dark mode vibe to it, which is interesting. I think before it looked more like a normal window, but now it's got like this kind of darker vibe, which is interesting. All right, well, next week, I think we're going to have to put the jump list stuff on pause because next week we're doing that Thunderbird stuff for episode 300. Actually, hold on. So that's exciting. Come check it out next week. Episode 300. I'm going to try and contribute something to Thunderbird. We'll see how that goes. And if that doesn't work out, we can look at the Scum VM implementation of the Scum engine. Maybe we want to do that anyways. Maybe we'll do that in a future episode. And then we'll come back to this Windows jump list stuff in a following episode. Hey, thank you so much for watching episode 299 of The Joy of Coding. I hope that code review was interesting. It was a lot more... for a small patch, because that was not a big patch, but for a small patch, that was very, like, we went pretty deep, and I'm glad we did, because, I mean, that's what a good review, a code review, in my opinion anyways, should do, is you should, like, understand what it's trying to do and how it's doing it to figure out if that's a thing we want to accept. Like, is this a contribution that we want to accept? And I want to thank, in particular, I doubt that the patch author is watching this, but if they are, thank you for your patch. Thanks for writing that. I mean, it was clearly you put in a lot of effort, especially to have to deal with the very complicated session store code that we have. I want to make sure that we make a conscious choice of what it is that we want to do here before accepting the patch. So I resigned from the review request. All right. We're going to cap it here. Thanks again for watching episode 299 of The Joy of Coding. I will see you next week with episode 300. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
The joy of coding.
See ya.